Well, hi there. So I'm using some watercolor paper today to create a galaxy, and the paper is about 300 grams per cubic meter, which means it's rather thick, and it won't warp as fast when I use a lot of water. I'm taping it down with some tape. I got this out of the builder's shop, and it's for sensitive wallpaper, so it doesn't stick too much to the paper and it won't tear it apart afterwards. Also, because the paper is rather thick and sturdy, it doesn't tear as easily. It's not very expensive. It's just a lower price watercolor. I'm going to be drawing a galaxy now, and I'm using some old reddish, orangish watercolor that was dried up in a pan that I had from a previous picture, and I'm blending in some more orange. And this is just going to be the first layer. I'm just putting in some colors. It's going to be more reddish, pinkish on the inside and turn into blue further on the outside. I'm using a lot of water now so that the colors can flow into each other. I'll be using some blue in a moment. And you'll see how the colors just flow into each other. There. With the hair dryer, I always dry in between. Otherwise, the drying process would take at least half an hour. It can also take up to 3 hours. And I also use the hair dryer to push the paint around a bit. Sometimes it works, and if I don't like it, then I just use a clean cloth and dry it. Now I'm layering another batch of color. I'm using very thick watercolor now. Just putting on thick, dense color. And I'm using different colors. There's two different types of blue, a darker one and one that's a bit more brilliant. And then I'm using the pinkish color that I've been using. It's like a magenta, and there's still some blue mixed into the color, so it looks a bit purplish. Well, that's fine. And then I'm putting in some pink. Actually, it's a shade of red, but I think it comes across more like a pink. Now I'm putting in some nice orange. I really like that color in there. Nice, intense colors. Now I put all of the colors on rather thick, and I'm going to use my water spray bottle now to make everything damp and get it to blend into each other. You could also apply some more water with a paintbrush, but I wanted to use my spray bottle today. And it's all flowing into each other. Colors mixing nicely. But there's a few places where I think there's too much liquid. I'm playing with it now with the hairdryer. So in the places where there's just too much going on, I'm just going to be using a cloth, a dry cloth, to take away some of the moisture. Because I layered the color very thick, some of the places it leaves a shiny look to it. That's because these are gansai tambi watercolors, and they look a little bit like lacquer if you layer them too thick. I personally like it. I don't mind. I have other watercolors, so if I don't want that effect, I'll just use other watercolors. I like it sometimes. And here I'm just dabbing on a very light orange into the orange again because I like the way it looks when you have these little dabs on there. And I keep going over the same spots over and over again from all sorts of different angles because the paintbrush kind of leaves a diagonal line and I don't want to see diagonal lines. I want little kind of like dabs and blotches. So I just keep using different angles to make it look well blended. And I also use a paper cloth to just dab in there and blend it in a bit and give it that and it looks a little bit as though I had put salt on it. I just don't want to use salt. I would have to let that dry and I just don't want to. Now after everything's dried again, I'm going to apply the little sprinkles, and I've seen people do it with toothbrushes and all sorts. I like doing it with a small paintbrush. This is a very small paintbrush, and I put on the paint and I smack my finger with the paintbrush and it just makes nice little sprinkles. They're very fine. It takes longer this way, but I've had trouble with other methods because I would get large blotches on the paper, large white blotches, and once they're on, they're hard to remove, and I wanted some nice, fine, small sprinkles, so it takes a bit longer, and yeah, and my paintbrush fell apart. That's not a problem. Sometimes these bits fall off. You can just squeeze them on again or use glue and continue using the paintbrush. The paintbrushes are still fine. Now at the bottom, I'm just going to do a little scene of hills. So here I'm starting with a hill in the back. And the gansai tambi colors, they come up nicely. So I just swooshed around with the wet paintbrush and some little bit of black and kind of took up some of the orangish color underneath, which makes a nice, it looks fitting, fits right in. And put in some clouds down there and a few trees. And then there's my hill further in the front. I use a stronger black color and I also take up some of the color from underneath and mix it into the black. And I like the way it looks. It's not too harsh, not just pure thick black. And then I'm doing some tree trunks and that can just look a bit wild. It's supposed to be just trees and bushes and all sorts. These are just the trunks and the branches that I'm working on now.